Hey guys, I was surfing around on the internet checking out some new Magic news and looking forward to the new set. And what in all that is holy is this? Unfortunately, most people thought it was fake. It is not. This has been confirmed. And oh look, Kozilek's in the new set. Makes sense. I had Kozilek's Channeler. Oh my god, what is going on with that cost? What is in the top right of this card? Well, luckily I got all kinds of commentary direct from the lead R&D guy at Wizards who put together this set, and I found all the official rulings on it, and I already know exactly how it works, so I'm going to share it with you. Well, let's look at Kozilek because he's the only one who actually is spoiled at this exact moment in time that has the new cost structure, or at least a picture of it. So the mana on the left is colorless, the mana on the right is colorless. They are reusing the word, they're using the traditional definition and the new definition, and they really didn't feel like renaming it. That's kind of crazy. So I'm going to call any mana cost from now on in a symbol, in a little circle, I'm going to call it universal mana, and the mana on the right is truly referred to as colorless mana. That's because the mana on the left, the 8 in the circle, or whatever the number should happen to be on a card, you can pay with any mana. You can pay with colored or colorless. So then, of course, the mana on the right can only be paid by colorless. If you try to feed in red mana, that doesn't work. So if you have one of the 5 colors of mana, it cannot be used to pay the 2 on the right because they are purely, literally colorless. So that's pretty much all there is to the explanation of how it works and how you read it and how you use it, but there's a lot more to it. So the best example is Kozilek's Channeler because he shows everything all in one nice tidy card and he's in battle for Zendikar. So the 5 universal mana, that is not changing. You would still literally interpret that as 5 universal mana. So don't call it colorless anymore, even though Wizards is calling it colorless, because it's not. Colorless means colorless now, I guess. So you could use any color of mana to pay that 5 to get Kozilek's Channeler out. So in past cards, anything that's already been printed, you literally read the card exactly as is because otherwise it would be too confusing. Ha! Just kidding. That is not what you do. On the bottom there, he taps for 2 colorless in a circle mana. Oh, but you can't read it that way anymore. He actually taps for 2 of these beautiful little diamond symbols because now he's tapping for colorless. And even though it says it's in a circle, it's not. It's 2, I guess, inside of a diamond. Well, actually, they have already stated that if a source is going to tap for 2, it's actually going to look more like this. But yeah, you'll just have to visually imagine your cards having 2 little symbols there instead. That's how you have to think of it. If you think of just the underlying concept instead of reading the card literally, then it works. But the whole point of Magic is read the flipping card. I mean, that's like the saying. Everything refers to the card and you look at the card verbatim. Well, that 2 is in a circle and it shouldn't be. There's just nothing they could do about that. It was just a poor design choice. So if we look at the only leaked land at this exact time, and it's a mythic, it's pretty nice actually. It's called Mirror Pool. Its first tap ability is add 1 diamond, which is the correct syntax now for generating mana. Add 1 colorless diamond to your mana pool. So it just means add 1 colorless. So imagine that it was in the circle if you want to think of things in the old way, but then really what they're saying is that if you've got a card like, say, Foundry of the Consoles, it says tap, add 1 in a circle colorless to your mana pool, when in reality you should be thinking of it as add 1 colorless diamond, because that's the new way that they are representing the whole concept of colorless mana. So that's why I think it's really, really, really important in the cost when a card's cost has like what you would normally call colorless in a circle and it's a number, to call that universal mana because it's just inaccurate to call it colorless. I don't care what Wizard says. So if you've got any number of these cards, like we're talking Mage Ring Network, Foundry of the Consoles, like I said, Radiant Fountain if you want to go old enough, because this is retroactive all the way to the beginning of the game basically. So if you play Modern, now you have to think, oh, this actually taps for the little diamond instead of the circle. Rogue's Passage, that's another one in Standard. Sanctum of Ugin, that's another one where you have to think, nope, that's not 1 in a circle, it's actually 1 little diamond symbol. I mean, there's probably a couple I'm missing because, as they said, there's enough between the two sets to reasonably summon a colorless creature now. It's just one more added difficulty step that prevents you from summoning colorless creature. Now, there is one reason that I think this is good. Everybody knows if you're going to run a big honkin' Eldrazi ramp deck, it has to be either pure green or primarily green. So you sit there and feed in green mana, green mana, green mana, green mana. You don't even have to touch colorless, and then you pay all the colorless costs. So if you wanted to bring out like a Desolation Twin for 10, you could pay 10 green. I mean, it was stupid because now you're running like a green deck with like a super green creature that just by sheer coincidence isn't green, but that's irrelevant. It might as well be a green creature. Now, I thought it was great because you could universally put a really powerful colorless creature in any color deck. You know, it helps you build, but I guess they wanted to go the opposite with it. They wanted, if you're running Eldrazi, you better be running Eldrazi. Like, you are now running colorless. So it's sort of like taking artifacts and making them really, really hard to cast. Like, usually artifacts would work great with blue, and then you would just generate all blue mana in the past. Well, now they want it so that if you're playing colorless, you're literally playing colorless. All your lands better tap for colorless. So if you think about it, well, you put 4 Sanctum of Ugin, 4 Spawning Bed, 4 Rogue's Passage. Eventually you're going to have to get to 20 or 21 lands, so you're just going to have 4 of everything, even if you don't like the effect. So their solution was to come up with a basic land called Wastes, and this is a basic land, so you could have as many in the deck as you want. So you could just dump 20 of these straight in the deck, and boom, you've got a colorless deck. And there actually are only 2 of these in existence. That's all that's in the set are exactly 2. It's not that just 2 have been spoiled. There are only 2 according to the wizard staff. So they also, this is even stranger, they do not show up in the fat pack, in the land pack, in the fat pack, and then in booster packs, they don't take the place of the land slot. They take the place of the common slot. So just purely to cater to the people who are running all kinds of sealed and draft and all that, they made it what they call a double probability. So there's one card and then there's another, and they both occupy a common slot. So let's say there's, 105 cards in common. Well, 2 of them are now waste lands. So you wouldn't have to just pull the land, which I think is actually you're not supposed to do that in draft. You're supposed to strip off the token and the land and not use it. So they did say that you can't just dump in all the waste you want. You can't just say, oh, I need 21 waste, thank you. You'd have to actually draft them, which is why they made it I don't know what the probability would be, like a 1 in 10 or something like that, or they had the numbers approximated. I didn't do it ahead of time, but you could imagine if there's 2 common cards that you could pull, and there's like 100 possibilities, it's like a 1 in 50, and then there's 10 per booster. So it's, was that a 1 in 5 or whatever? So that's for the sealed format, but otherwise, you could just go get as many of these as you want, trade with your friends, whatever, and then dump them into your standard constructed deck. Now, the one thing to notice with these lands is that they are a basic land, that is their type, but they don't have what's called a subtype, or I think they refer to them as a domain. So, like, on a basic land forest, it's a forest. The domain is forest, so, or the subtype. So, they have to have one. All basic lands have them. There are only 5 basic lands, and they all have domains. So these don't, and that's just 100% strictly, purely because old cards refer to them, that you have to match them, and it says go get one of these 5, and then it just wouldn't work. So just so that it wouldn't break a whole bunch of cards and then have to ban cards that people actually use, they decided to just not give it a subtype or a domain. So that's the only reason they did that. Otherwise it would almost definitely say -wastes. So definitely the most annoying thing with this change is that colorless creatures are harder to cast in general, because I'll give you an example. Well, I'm running a green Eldrazi ramp deck right now. I have it built. I'm doing really well with it. Great. Now, if I want the new Eldrazi, I have to dump off a whole bunch of my forests and a whole bunch of my lands and screw with all the colors and effectively add another color called colorless, because I can't bring out Kozilek without literally colorless. I can't just say I'm going all green and then the colorless, I'm fine. So it really, really alters the land choice, and if you think about it, it would be exactly the same as if Kozilek cost purple. Because, well, if I can't use my colorless land to cast my green spells, and I can't use my green forest to cast my colorless spells, that's what we like to refer to as a two-color deck. Yeah, it's colorless, but now since it's literally colorless, well, it might as well be purple. So there's no such thing as like a mono green, or maybe I should go mono green with colorless. No, now it's a two-color deck if you're going mono green with colorless. So definitely a big hit to people who like to play mono or don't like mixed lands, but what can you do? Now, really nothing else changed with the old lands other than thinking, hey, the symbol is different now. It's now if it's tapping for colorless, it's tapping for diamond. Just remember that. If it's tapping for colorless, it's tapping for diamond. So if you go to non-mana producing lands at all, like Evolving Wilds, for example, that does not now magically tap for diamond colorless just because it's a colorless land. It still only does exactly what is written on the card. Just remember, swap out the circle for the diamond. So that's the one exception. So all the cards are read exactly verbatim the way they were before, except that the circles are replaced with diamonds. And then when it comes to the cost of a creature for older cards, then it's exactly the same as it is now, which is if it's in a circle, pay absolutely anything. So hope you guys join me in calling it Universal Mana. I think that's a lot better name for it. So I guess one more complicated example would be Ally Encampment. So that first ability there, it says tap and add one colorless to your mana pool. Well, just imagine that the little one with the circle is not universal because it's not. It's literally colorless. So it's tapping, generating one diamond mana. Now you go down to the cost. Since that is a cost, you still pay it. Now it does not cost one colorless. It costs one universal mana, according to my new terminology that I hope you'll all share and use because it's just better. So you could pay one of any color, anything you want, and still use the ability. So it doesn't change as long as it's a cost. It only changes if it generates mana. So just keep that little simple rule in mind, and you really shouldn't have a problem. And hopefully that's the way you use it to explain it to all your friends too. Or just send them this video. Now I did say that there was only one land that was leaked so far. That isn't technically true, but they leaked an expedition land, so nobody knows if this is for sure in the set or not. They haven't confirmed or denied that as far as I know, but this is one of the double filter lands, so it is a reprint. This is a reprinted card, but this is what the typical colorless generation lands will look like from now until forever, unless they give up on it due to massive amounts of complaints. But when have they ever listened to the users and customers? Come on, we all know that's not going to happen. So you tap it, generate one colorless mana, and then the rest is just exactly like you think. You got your hybrid there, you feed in either, and then you tap it, and then it spits out two. So kind of neat, kind of eats up your land, makes you use it all at once. But I always did like these little double filter, double generation lands, or single filter, whatever. I'm not sure they were ever technically named when they were in play, but yeah. So this is the expedition land. So this is a great example. If it's not in the set, this is how you should imagine Mystic Gate actually looks. So I'll throw them up side by side here, the new version of the old version. That's the new version is the way you should read the old version. So that's a great visual for you. But other than that, I mean, that's all for the change. My impression of it is it's completely idiotic. It makes it way harder to play colorless at all, which I guess is the point. I mean, that's what they wanted colorless to be really, really distinct. They wanted it to be its own thing that you can't just toss into a colored deck as like a supplement, as like a really easy cast card. Well, if they want to do that, make purple mana. I mean, it's stupid to name two different things colorless and just blow everybody's mind and confuse everybody. They should have just literally created a sixth color and called it a day. I mean, even if it was just temporary for just this set, whatever, it would have been so much simpler. But hopefully you guys got it down. If you have any questions or other comments or any other news, put it in the comments section. Otherwise, like I said, send this to everybody who is confused about it, and you'll look really smart for getting on top of it already.